All right, so good afternoon, good morning, good evening, no matter where it is you're tuning in from. This is Founders Take, and we are so happy to have all of you here joining us today. I am Brian Antolin, Program Manager at Line Run, and we are so happy to have Ben Hill, founder of Shareity, joining us today. How are you doing, Ben?
Great. How you doing?
I am wonderful. I am wonderful. Thank you so much. And got to say, I love the attic look. I know I told you about that beforehand, but love, you know, that atmosphere and just for me in the city, just seeing something else that's not tall buildings and taxis it is really nice. So props
Yeah.
to you.
Yeah. I actually built this barn myself too. So, and this is when my wife kicks me out too because she doesn't like to hear all the meetings in the house. So,
That is awesome. Well, today's session, we're talking about how entrepreneurs leverage social influence, which is something that you definitely know a lot about, Ben, and how other people, students, professionals, other entrepreneurs can do that as well. And before we hop in and learn more about you and also Charity, also want to mention that our session today is hosted in part to help promote Charity's Get America Running Again challenge, which contributes to the Restaurant Workers Community Foundation. So we'll talk a little bit more about that shortly, but really great cause, really happy to help out and hope that we can get the word out.
yeah. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Awesome. So, love to dive right in, learn a little bit more about you and your journey into entrepreneurship and how that really led you to Charity and what you're doing now.
Yeah. So, well, it's kind of I don't know how long a story you want here, right? From birth till now, but I've always been kind of I've always been like I guess I'd say like engineer problem solver. I went to college for engineering. I was always tinkering with things and had a love for building things and putting things together and solving problems. And so I got into real estate development, landscape construction, real estate development a number of years ago, and built a successful company doing that. And then there's obviously with Charity, it's obviously construction and the digital world don't mix at all. But it goes to show you that when you keep your mind open, you're thinking, you can come up with ideas. And just because you're not a so-called expert in that field doesn't mean that you can't get into that field and start learning new things and throw yourself into it. And I guess that's one of the biggest things that happened to me was I got passionate about this idea. And for all the that don't know what Charity is, it's an online platform to monetize your social influence online where you do fun challenges or actions. If you think about TikTok or Instagram or whatever, and then brands donate money because of you, creates a database of users, and then leads to rewards and selling products, et cetera, et cetera. But these ideas, they come to you, and then you kind of get wrapped up in them, right? And you kind of keep thinking about how to make it better and how to iterate on the problem and try to solve those problems. So that's kind of where I went, real estate development into Charity full time about 3 or 4 years ago. And then we've been scaling and growing ever since.
It's amazing, and especially that transition, as you mentioned, from an industry that is generally kind of self-contained. I mean, yeah, prop tech and all this other stuff, but generally self-contained, and jumping right into just entrepreneurship and tech and the deep end. That's a really a significant shift.
Yeah.
And in that process, how were you able to make that transition away from the stuff that you've known and the stuff that you did in working in real estate and
Yeah.
also with your background in the more formal on the engineering side? How were you able to make that jump into being an entrepreneur, working for yourself, and now also leading a really incredible group of people? How
Yeah.
did that work?
Well, it wasn't easy. Nothing is easy that's worth doing, right? But I think you go from a world where everything is tangible. Everything's like you get brick and mortar. you got money, you got rentals, you have like actual tangible assets, right? You don't have like IP and stuff that's like doesn't have really have a value until somebody wants it. You go from that world into something that doesn't deliver those results every day, and it's tough, right? Because you don't see the fruits of your labor right away. You know, if I was going to go around and fix up a building or do something, I would see right away. You know, I put 200, $1,000 into $1 million building, and I can get like a, 1.6, $1.7 million in return for it. So like those are the things that I understood, and they would deliver like real tangible results. And then I jump into this digital realm where it's not like that. It's completely different, and it's it's really a mindset, and it's a passion, and it's following your passion. It's not about making money. It wasn't like, I want to jump into this thing because I want to make money. It's jumping in because I wanted to follow my passion. I believed in the product. I believed in what it could do for the world and how it could, make the economy better, have people value their social influence online, taking it back from Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat and Twitter that essentially steal it every single day from you, putting it back in the power of the people, so that they can monetize right away for brands, causes, and create a whole new economy around the world that we call the shared care economy. So that vision kind of kept propelling me and kept me going, right? And I think, in hindsight, if the idea wasn't as good, and there was holes that I could blow in it all over the place, then I wouldn't have done it. So it just goes to show you that like years and years of iteration on something worthwhile, and part of, so I would say like part of it is getting good teammates behind you as well too, because you can't do it alone. It's a tough road, and you need somebody to like help support you, and whether it be like mentors or partners, or even people that you hire and put on your team, they keep you going as well too. And I know that some of my team is on here, and I thank them for everything that they've done up to this point. Because sometimes without them, I don't know if I would continue either. Sometimes it gets tough.
Yeah, it definitely takes that tribe setting to really help support a venture, no matter what it is, and especially in tech, where it's really easy to get siloed and walled off, and you need
Yep.
that perspective. So I really love that you mentioned that. And you mentioned a little bit briefly before we got there about social influence and helping to empower people to take it back from the larger platforms.
Yep.
How has your perspective or view on social influence changed from when you came up with Charity to where you are now a few years later?
Yep.
What's that journey been like, and how has that view evolved, and how has that really influenced your work right now?
I think, I used to think, um, when you looked at social media companies, in 10 years ago when I came up with the idea, they were like the latest craze, and nobody really knew how to monetize any of the data, the market, or anything. So I really wasn't focused when I first came up with the idea on the direct monetization of it. I knew that it was like, it's like, but so it's something that people weren't doing. It wasn't like it is now, where you're paying influencers to post your content, you're doing all this. So nobody knew if it was even going to be around like 10 years ago. Like they're like, well, I don't know, we're not going to, like Amazon just started like selling stuff online, right? So everything was kind of in its infancy. And I said there has to be a way in which we can almost kind of start a new economy around what data is being tracked out there. And if you look at like, in back, the infancy of like blockchain technology and stuff too, it's like the tracking of that data. So, and actually one of the enlightening moments for me was, driving in traffic one day and looking at people's bumper stickers on the car. And I'm like, where's your bumper sticker for your social influence? Like, where are the causes linked to you of what you care about? Like, you know what I mean? Like, how do you kind of promote that bumper sticker on your social influence? And that's kind of where a lot of it started from. It was about getting badges and going to events and getting badges, and then using actions to facilitate money donations to causes, And then the thing kind of kept on evolving into the current state it is now. So I would say, to answer your question, I know a long-winded answer here, but it, it wasn't for direct monetization right away. We didn't think of like, hey, do this action, or I didn't think of like, do this action and then that's directly monetized. It was always like, put it in the bank, right? And then being able to go back to that data later and then remonetize it. So being able to, it was really about tracking of all that, tracking the web links, tracking. So if I do an action on Facebook and then it goes to Twitter and it goes to email and whatever, like whatever I'm doing on there, there was like a node that would kind of pick up that technology, that would kind of scrape all that data, anything that interacted with that, anything that interacted with that, that interacted with that, like multiple tiers, multiple generations of that tracking, and then monetizing that data. That's kind of always the way I thought about it. And then, we kind of spun it a little bit, 4 years ago, or actually before the Ice Bucket Challenge came out. And I'm like, oh, wow, we can do actions and have brands donate money. So that was probably about 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I don't know, whatever it was. And then that's been really the theme moving forward, which was just, the instant monetization of your social influence online by doing an action, calling upon a brand. You do, people do actions, brands donate money, brands do actions, right? So it's calling upon that brand to make that donation and do that action, and be aligned with you, right? Sitting on the couch with you.
Really amazing how you were able to connect that A to B through all of these examples that have come about relatively recently. You mentioned the Ice Bucket Challenge and
Mhm.
all of these things now you see on TikTok and all of the challenges. It's really amazing to see how people rally behind something they believe in, even if it's something that's just, something crazy or wild or fun, because they can be a part of it.
Yep.
From your perspective in building a business model that also not just involves users, but also brands, how are you able to make that connection where you can help people, individual people, just leverage their social network and their social power to effectuate change? What was that path like, and how were you able to make that connection and say to a brand, we found that all these people are really interested in X, and you should sponsor them.
Yeah.
That's for me kind of the point that I find really interesting. How you're able to convince them. So if you could share a little bit, that'd be great.
So, I think kind of going back to that model, what I said before, was always about, people doing something, going to an event, doing an action, doing something, having that online presence, being able to track that data. And then it was always like having the brand possibly donate, or do something or monetize that data in some form or fashion, right? And then it was probably 8 years ago, 7 years ago or something. We're getting more into to the actions, right? Um, for a brand, it's about advertising, right? It's about getting their word out there. It's about being top of mind. So, if you're Nike or something, next time you go out to buy shoes, Nike's gonna want you to think about their brand, right? So maybe they align with Black Lives Matter, maybe they align with something, and it kind of like, so what we talk about when we're trying to sell to a brand, it's all about purpose, right? What kind of purpose are you going to align with? And whether it's Black Lives Matter, cancer, or whatever, you need to align with that person so you can sit on the couch with them, right? It's about action, so engagement. People, social media companies, and like to think that like likes and views and impressions mean something, but they really don't translate to sales. When people take action, that's more memorable. That kind of starts to translate a lot more into sales, a lot easier. And then it's about what kind of value are they giving, right, for their users on the platform. So when brands are looking for ROI, or return on investment, return on ad sales, return on donation, whatever they're spending their money on, they're looking for what are they getting for this, right? And our unique value proposition is, if they're going to donate $1 million to a cause, they're going to have a database of 1 million users that do the challenge, or they don't pay for it, right? So if only 500,000 people do it, then they only pay the $500,000. So the unique value proposition that the brands are getting from this, is aligning with purpose, aligning with engagement, building a database of users that's scalable now, right? Where people do actions and they share that content because I do a TikTok action or something, or I'm doing a fun challenge on Instagram or whatever it is. It doesn't matter. I'm going to share with people, right? So now I'm sharing the brand, I'm sharing the cause. So they get this really unique way of engaging audiences in a completely different way, where they don't have to spend a ton of ad spend on marketing advertising. They just need to, align with people where they do an action, share with their friends, and they become the media for the brand, right? Wouldn't it be nice if you shared Coca-Cola? That's what Coca-Cola thinks. Like, I would never share Coca-Cola, but I would share all day long. Coca-Cola donates $5 if you do this challenge to like some cancer institute, right? So I think there's tons of value propositions within there, but it's yeah, I could go on like 10 more. So, but well,
I, I love that example of Coca-Cola, and I think you really explained it eloquently about the whole process. It's an entire process where it's a double buy-in from both the audience and the brand to essentially support each other to
yeah,
help people. And that's the thing I really, really loved when I first met you and your team. That was really the whole basis of why you're doing this. It's really mission driven.
exactly. Yep,
When we're talking social influence, of course, trends go out of style and people's behaviors shift. And I'm sure that that's something that really affects you and your team as well. So how are you able to really adapt and change to what people are doing now versus in the future? How are you able to adapt, or does that really impact your overall perspective or business model?
yep. So, um, yeah, it's a great question. But I don't see actions going out of style. So what charity does essentially, if you want to, kind of boil it down, we take real world actions, right? And we monetize them through your digital presence. So these actions don't have to be just like the newest dance, or the newest challenge or trick or whatever you're doing, but they can actually, it's a new way of volunteering. It's volunteerism meets slacktivism, right? Because I'm not going to go down to a soup kitchen and volunteer an hour of my time, but what I will do is I'll take a quick selfie with my grandmother and share it with all my friends or whatever, and then they can go and take a picture with their older loved ones or whatever it is. So there's there's a lot of things we can do, because it's really just taking the physical world and monetizing it into the digital world, and then tracking that influence, so tracking that online presence.
It, definitely interesting, and I definitely understand from what you just said on it. It's not really based on the actual trends; it's just the actions, and
Yeah,
whatever action people take, it's really following that through to the end. And
exactly.
it's really not getting involved in the like life cycle, but just starting them up and maintaining it till it goes to the end. So it's really, really cool.
You mentioned before about, this is a really close tie between people, brands, and causes. We call that the share care economy. People do actions, brands donate money, causes find solutions, and it's a perfect economy between them, where people are centric in the entire thing, and they're valuing their online presence. They're calling upon that brand, right? So it's power. It's almost like a reverse boycott, if you want to think about it like that. So this is good for any brand out there, if it's like Shell, or if it's like a really sustainable, I don't know, like, I mean, it could be like a chain restaurant, or it could be like an oil company, right? It doesn't matter what it is. If you don't like the oil companies because you like EVs or whatever, then get the oil company to donate more money and plant more trees, right? So it's there's no negative effect um, to what you can do with this platform.
Definitely. And taking that back just a step and going back to the actual process of running, launching, starting a business.
Mhm.
What was the biggest mistake that you made in those early days as you were gearing Charity up and trying to find a product market fit and trying to influence both sides, the brands and the individuals? What was, if you had to point one out, what was that big mistake that really influenced and shaped how where you went
Mistake.
later on?
I don't know. I think I've made a lot of mistakes. I keep rolling with them though. I think no matter what mistake you make, if you have that passion, you have that fire for what you're doing, then you can kind of keep rolling through anything. Um, I don't know what I would say. I would say probably my one of my biggest mistakes is um, I guess listening. I guess it would be twofold. It'd be listening to people and taking too much advice when they don't quite understand what you're doing, but you think that they're so-called experts in that field. Because we're doing something completely out of the box. If you take somebody who's done marketing for Pepsi for 20 years, you know what I mean? Like their advice is not going to be good for me, right? So uh, I think when you look at it from that, and then also um, maybe not giving people enough credit in taking their advice. I don't know if I can put it down to a specific example, but it would come around. It would be around like people's advice and people close to me that came to the table and either taking it where I shouldn't have or not taking it maybe when I should have.
It's really interesting. When we talk about entrepreneurship and startup life, we always point to make sure you have a good board of advisors who can guide you and um, taking the advice and extracting lessons from it. But what you brought up is something really important that we usually don't get to hear a lot of. It's, take the advice with a grain of salt and, weigh it based on the factors that really affect you and what their perspective being on the outside looking in is. And I could definitely see how that one point really helped you and your team really grow and scale because if you just listen to marketing people, they wouldn't understand this at all.
Yep. Yeah, and we would be doing something that they did 10, 20 years ago. It's like I keep kind of I go back to this. I give an analogy of like Lyft or Uber or whatever, and you say, if you listen to some of these people, so say, Uber's in Boston or whatever, and like, this is 5 years ago or something, and everybody's getting a taxi. And if you told people like, no, 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 just get in an Uber, get in somebody else's random car and let them drive you home. It's like, what? No friggin' way. I would never do that. It took the first 5 people, 10 people, 100 people to get in the car. And then all my friends using this app and then this and that. So for that to get on board, it was a great idea. But it may have never materialized. I mean, everybody probably told them, there's no way this is going to work. You can't defeat the taxi companies. There's too many rules and regulations. How are you going to do insurance? How are you going to do all of this? Well, if they listened to them, they would never have the product they have today. So I think that that's valuable. I can't pinpoint one, like I said, but there's probably plenty that I should have taken and not taken. But I am where I am.
And I'm really glad that you are here now sharing with us. I think that that says something that you had at least some level of success.
Yeah.
No, we keep talking about your platform and how it really helps galvanize different causes and helps get people and brands involved. And if you were to point out like one example or one challenge or one initiative that came out of your platform that really helped to define, where you are today and use it as like a case study for other
Mhm.
potential partners, what would that be? What was
I
that
think
one big spark that
I think
really
one
set
of
up things?
we've done a lot of events around Boston, and a lot of them are like, focused around like in-person events. Obviously, we haven't had a lot of in-person events, right? And we've pivoted in COVID. So now we've pivoted from, like our bread and butter, which was like, walk, run events, smaller events, concerts and stuff, to now like action buttons, that you can add to your advertising. So, um, and in also in virtual events and stuff. But I would actually point to one of the first big concerts that we did, which was which was a Kiss concert, and where we had incredible engagement, and we didn't expect it. We didn't know what was going to happen. We did a Kiss. It was blow a kiss, and we raised money for the Genesis Foundation with iHeartRadio. And I got a bunch of college kids to come in with me. This is kind of like early on, 2017, I think. And we had a kissing booth, and nobody wanted to wear the kissing booth, because it was like a big booth you had hang over you or whatever. And by the end of the night, though, I'll tell you, every guy wanted to use a kissing booth because all the girls were coming up and kissing them. It was funny at the concert, but we didn't expect the engagement that we had there. We expected we get 1,000 people or something to do it, and we blew that way out of the water. And we had almost 30%, a little more than 30% of the audience do this challenge. 20,000 people, whatever, or engage in some form or fashion, or do one of the challenges within the platform. And not only did they just do that one challenge, but they did multiple other challenges within it too. So I think that's like one of the first events where we actually saw like the scalability of this, and then the sharing rates on top of that too. So, we saw, people not just at the concert doing it, but they shared with their friends on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. And we saw people in like, South Dakota and, Alaska, and people in bed at night, doing the kiss, so it was really fun. It was engaging, and it really put a lot of validation on the product.
Really amazing. And to think that it really, your whole premise really was proven at a concert. I think that just shows leaps and bounds what social influence can really do, especially if it's
Absolutely.
already tied to something where you have an affinity and people are really brought together already and just
Yep.
activating them. We're talking about social influence, we're talking about different campaigns and engaging people. And you brought this up just a few minutes ago about how COVID's really changed that landscape, and you really don't have the opportunity to do live events, or at least on the scale that we're all accustomed to, where you can really leverage that affinity and that audience that we were just talking about.
Yep.
How have you been able to really shift into more of a digital realm, and what do you see in the future as your ultimate business model, where you have the live events and you have the virtual? How does it really connect?
Yeah. And so I think we've learned a lot over the last 8 months. Obviously this hit us like did every other industry. We're a lot smaller, so we can pivot and move a lot quicker. But engagement, let's face it, engagement in person is way better, right? Look at all the people right now. I bet you people that are even listening to this, I don't even know how many there are, but they're probably doing 5 things right now, right? They're doing emails, they're doing whatever. So stop doing emails and listen. No, but it's really, it's hard to get people's engagement virtually. But what you can do is, try to, like, for instance, when you own something, when I'm going to take a selfie and do something, or I'm going to take a picture, I'm going to put my worth behind it, and then I'm going to share it. I'm going to care a lot more about that now. I'm going to care a lot more about that event than I would if I didn't do any of that stuff. So if instead you guys are doing challenges in the background, you're sharing with your friends, you're seeing this person accepted it, that person accepted it, you see a leaderboard on the screen, and you see, a prize of maybe person who shares and gets the most people to do it wins, like, I don't know, like a pair of Beats headphones or something. So like there's the engagement factor. Now all of a sudden I'm a little more engaged than, looking at my emails or chatting with somebody on Snapchat or something, right? So we take that now and you say, how do we bring this back, right? We believe that events are going to come back, in-person events. They may be socially distanced or whatever, but we take those learnings now, of how to engage these people, and we bring that digital into those live events. So when we're doing these things, it's about engaging them with text at the events, right? Having them do the challenge, putting them up on the big screen. People that are virtually now attending the events, right, are able to do it, and everybody's able to connect through this connective tissue, building a community together. It's very powerful when you start building a community, and people feel part of something. So they didn't just come to this webinar, but we actually did good with this webinar, with everybody coming here, with their collective social influence, and then they're seeing that impact. When you see that impact, it just it becomes so much more engaging. So I think, to answer your question quickly, it's about, what we've learned over the last 8 months, and engaging in scalability and utilization of that community and data, and how to re-engage that community. And then when live events come back, those live events, I feel, are going to be 10 times better. Some people are going to attend them virtually. Some people are going to attend them in person. Some people like the in-person connection. Um, I don't know if we're ever going to shake hands again, but we'll see.
For sure. And want to double click on something that you mentioned about community. And I really believe at the heart of social influence, social impact, it's community, and really that the initiatives don't survive without it.
Yep.
And from what you've mentioned and what I've seen so far from the platform, you guys really do a great job in bringing people together for a cause to really not just help people, but also drive awareness.
Mhm.
And I'm sure that was purposeful. For those of us who are watching who are either entrepreneurs or who are about to get into a project where they have to lead a bunch of people, what what advice would you give them about how to really treat social influence and use it for good and to help people with it? How, if you were to boil it down to like one or two pieces of advice, what would you say?
Um, I think there's a lot of, I think people take their online presence for granted, right? There's, I think there's a lot of, there's a lot of noise out there right now. People just do things, they click on things, they get in fights with people online, and nobody's really thinking about like what they're doing. It's just like thrown out there. I mean, we're all bombarded with just noise. There's just so much noise. I think one of the ways of cutting through that noise is building community around certain things. If you look at what Facebook has done, they to try to build community around, like, you have these certain pets or these certain dogs, or the mom's community, or maybe it's the cancer survivor community or something. And those are really impactful because you're relating with those people in there. We don't build them around people's and their likes or whatever. We build them around actions. So we can build communities around entire workplaces with this, right? They don't have to have a pug or have somebody that's dying from cancer or anything like that. They just need to take part and then be willing to meet new people. And I think the curiosity of the human nature, and um, you know we're connective beings, right? We need that to survive. um, we're essentially, I'm just saying, like, we're born alone, we die alone, and the entire time we're searching for connection, right? Whether I'm connecting with you, I'm connecting with my parents, I'm connecting with my coworkers, or I'm my kids or anything. It's it's very important, that connection. I think we overlook that a lot, and we overlook how we use that online. And I think it's really important to start rethinking that, and rethinking how, you know, this is the last thing I'll say, okay, about this, but how how do you want to be remembered? The digital, evolution, started, maybe what, 20 years ago or whatever, collecting massive amounts of data, pictures, everything that never goes away. So it's better than etched in stone. So when you used to say 10, 20 years ago, what do you want put on your gravestone? Well, you're making your gravestone right now. It's in social media. Like, you're going to be remembered for whatever you've done, this podcast, the actions that you've taken online, the things that your accounts that you've had online, they're they're all discoverable, right? um, I think we need to start thinking about how we want to be remembered. And I think, yeah.
Love it. And it's such an important but simple question, and something that a lot of people
Yeah,
really
and it
don't
was a
even.
complex answer for you.
Amazing, amazing. Really, really powerful stuff, Ben. From here, I think we're going to jump into a few questions from our audience. So, Xiao from your team actually is asking about iteration. And you mentioned this a few minutes ago about as you were building and growing and getting understanding more about what's that fit and how really to adapt to what people want. What for you was the most difficult part of iterating your idea for charity and then applying it into an actual business?
I think I don't have a lack of ideas. My brain is wired for ideas and solving problems, so it just doesn't shut off. Now, getting the rest of your team to buy into these ideas, or I get known as like the crazy like mad scientist you want to lock in the closet because it just got too many ideas coming or whatever. So for me, it's not about like you know coming up with the ideas or kind of seeing that evolution. It's about how do I gear these ideas? How do I present these ideas to my team, to brands, to causes, to people or whatever to try and make them work, right? It's like a great idea to get in that lift, right? Because we can start a whole new economy around people get jobs, whatever, they can use their own cars, whatever, but you need to be the first person to get into that lift, right? So it's like which ideas are the best ones that people can get, so you're not trying to fit that square peg in a round hole, right?
Getting people to buy in is definitely a whole challenge in itself, for sure. We have one more question from Anonymous. And Anonymous is asking what your opinion is on the evolution of social media platforms and social influence, and where do you see it going long term?
Well, I think it's all going to come down to GDPR compliancy and people owning their data online. We're seeing trends going in that direction. Europe has adopted those standards, GDPR compliancy standards. California has their own set of standards. Um, you know, 2022 third-party, cookies and data are going away. Um, so I think that the trend is going to be towards a people-centric economy where people own their data online. I almost see as like a new way of working as well. Utilizing like Charity, monetizing the actions online, getting push rewards, becomes a whole new influencer community. There's a saying online. Well, it's a saying I make about social media. What social media says about you online, they say you're either an influencer and you're making us money and you're like gold or whatever, or you're a follower. Which are you, right? So that's what it comes down to, and it shouldn't be that way. Everybody should be an influencer, and with Charity, everybody's an influencer. They can influence and monetize the data on day one. I don't have to be, um, you know, I don't even know who's one of the biggest stars right now, like Kim Kardashian or something, whatever. Like I don't have to be a Kim Kardashian to have a mega amount of influence online through networks, through scaling. Somebody who lives in a trailer down by the river who just got a phone yesterday can start and literally have that network built up relatively quickly. And it's about tracking those multiple nodes and multiple people that do it. So I see it's a whole new way of monetizing data for people online, and I think that's where the trend's going. That collection of your data, the use of your data. And by the way, with Charity, when people share their content online, they delete it. It's deleted like Snapchat, right? So like it won't show up anywhere. You can't, unless you screenshot the images or whatever. Like if you want your challenge down, it's down everywhere in the world. They see broken links. They see nothing, right? So it's a way to, control your data, capture your data and monetize your data. And I really see that's where all the trends are going for it.
Sure, being more data centric and using data towards whatever action you want within reason of compliance, as you mentioned, is definitely something we could probably bank on.
Yep. Yeah, and so if everybody wants to do a fun challenge right now, they can do the Get America Running Challenge. All
Yep.
they have to do is, I'm not sure if we have a link there. Do we have a link for this at
Let's
all? Or
see.
would it
Let's see if we can bring it
perhaps
up.
possible did a link? We made the link for it, or if we have the link available. But anyway, it's it's about Get America Running. So it's like your turn to run. So you take a video just running, you send it to your friends, and then they just drop whatever they're doing and run. So they could be like, coming out of the shower or something, or getting out of the car. They could just drop what they're doing and just run. So it's just a fun challenge to get America running. Kind of a play on words, but
Definitely. I'm trying to bring it up right now, see if we can get something so we can
oh, I think
healthy.
she threw a link in there for it in
Okay,
the
so there we go. So it's in the Shareity app. So if that's something you're interested in learning more about, something we definitely support, uh, go check it out. So I have it as my.charity.com and it's also in the app. Is that correct, Ben?
yeah, and it's in this. It's the link. I think maybe Tyler just posted it. Yeah, Tyler just
Okay.
posted it.
All right,
So
cool.
you guys can click on that link. Yep.
Definitely. And we're also going to share the link to everyone who registered and also with our greater community next week.
Yeah, great. Thanks. Can't hear you, Brian. I can't hear you.
Thanks very much for that. So, really want to thank you, Ben. Really appreciate taking the time and also for giving us a lot of food for thought to think more about our social influence and also just to see how Charity is really trying to bridge these gaps in how people are using and leveraging their influence online. So, really, thank you so much.
I hope it was entertaining for everybody and it was useful information.
Definitely.
And good luck in the projects that you're working on.
And for those of you who register, like I said, we will send more information about the challenge and also Charity in the email, and you can reach out to Ben. Put a link in his LinkedIn profile. And for those of you who are interested in our future programs, we tend to do one of these every 2 weeks, feature a different entrepreneur. It's linerun.co, and we hope to see you soon. So again, Ben, thank you so much, and thank you to
Yeah.
everyone who listened, attended, and watched.
Thanks for having me, Brian.
All right. Have a good one, everybody.